Welcome to the Acorn shop. My name is Rod. So in this episode I'm going to show you how I got the seats, or we call the thwarts, the center one and the forward one, which accommodates for the mast step. Now in the last little short video I did say that I'd lost some video. I did. I cannot show you how I put the seat riser in, which is pretty straightforward. I did steam bend the piece, then I let it sit in the boat for a couple of days, then I pulled it out and figured out the heights of all of the seats in relation to the shear line, and then I screwed it in place. Now I also cannot show you how I did the seat in the stern, but it's pretty straightforward as well, cutting the 5 little pieces that fit into the fan shape. So let's get to it. For the seats and thwarts, I'm just using a nice piece of Western red cedar. It is a 2x12. The finished width of the center thwart is only supposed to be 7 inches wide. Seems a little narrow to me. I'm going to cut this piece at 7, and then I'm going to add maybe ½ an inch of a hardwood edge to it. Kind of adds to the wearability of the edges of the thwart. So cut this one at 7 and add ½ an inch on either side. For the forward thwart, has to be include the mast partner, so it needs to be a little bit wider. I'm going to go with 8.5 on this. Thwarts really only need to be 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm going to go a little bit thicker at 7/8. I just don't want to see them sort of sagging under weight over time. But with the hardwood edge, that'll kind of stiffen it up as well. So I will do that on the forward edge, or the aft edge of the forward thwart. Now I need to thin them down. I really hate to just run 1.5 inches through the thickness planer down to 7/8. So I might just see if I can trim some of this off on the bandsaw. Keep a little piece for something. So if I just cut one side on the table saw, which is the cleanest way to do it, flip the other side, then I just have to get through the center there with the bandsaw. Here I'm just running the boards through my thickness planer. I'm still leaving it a little bit oversized. I'm going to add the edging trim, and then I will plane down to the proper dimensions once everything is glued up. For the trim edge, I'm just using a nice piece of ash, of which I'm cutting down to approximately 1x1, which will then be cleaned up later once it's glued on. pieces of ash were glued onto the edges of the thwarts using epoxy, and then just clamping up and letting them sit overnight. So now that the glue is hardened up, I can run them back through my planer to get everything clean to the proper dimensions of about 3/4. I have my seats glued up, or thwarts glued up. Now it's time to figure out the length and shape. So I'm going to use this simple little method here of just using 2 boards, 2 planks. I'm stretching them out so that they're touching the ribs on both sides, and then I'm clamping them together. So this measurement here, I can actually, well, I can probably make a mark on there that I would sit something like so, that angle there. Probably a little different on the other side. That's not what I'm looking at right now. But what I want to know is that distance across. I do the same on the other side here, because I just want it to sit on the riser and touch the rib. And there will be a bevel on here, so this will be the underside bevel. I cut the ends of the thwarts on my bandsaw with the bevel set to match the side of the rowboat itself. And now I'm just going to temporarily install them with screws so that I can measure where I need to fit the oarlocks. I need to now figure out where to drill the hole in the forward thwart for the mast to go through, and from the plans determine that the mast literally sits perfectly perpendicular to the floor of the boat. So I'm going to try and figure out where that is on the underside of the thwart. What I've done is cut a piece of scrap lumber here with a bit of a wedge on the bottom, and if I just jam that in, then I need to figure out what is the height of that piece of wood. I put this into there like so. The underside would be cut something like that. Go and take that to the bandsaw and cut it off. And then if I just jam that back in, I'm right dead on center. I should be able to put my thwart across there and mark on the underside here where the center is. But first, I need to make sure that is actually perpendicular to the floor. Look at that. That's pretty good. Bye-bye. So your thwart sits there. Now I should be able to mark on the underside that a score mark. And what is the distance between those 2 points? That's right, 724, so 362. 2 is center right there. The hole in the mast step is 1.5 inches to accommodate the taper on the bottom of the mast itself. The center diameter of the mast is 1.5. I'm going to drill 1 3/4 because I plan to put a little leather inside the opening to just support the mast from rubbing and all of that. darn centered in there. In looking back at the plans, I don't actually need to make a second thwart because the center of the seat, or sorry, center of the hole is to be 6 inches from the back or the aft edge of the forward thwart, and we're pretty darn close right there. So I think we're going to be good. Now I'm just going to shape the fore edge of it, a little bit of, and then I can round over all the edges, sand, screw in, and determine where my oarlock blocks need to go. This I'll just do on the bandsaw and clean it up. My only concern with the mast partner here is this beautiful straight grain running right across here. Whether or not, you know, that is going to split off down the road. I surely hope not. But, you know, it's, you know, is it worth putting another piece of wood across here, a little bit harder, denser wood, not very thick, but just to make a lamination that it won't split? Like just a piece across here, you know, shaped in, blended in, epoxied on top. I'll think about that one. I'm just measuring where to mark my holes. I'm going 1 inch from the edge and 3/4 out of the side, and then same on the forward portion. Then I just split the difference. Oops. So this seat is between those holes is a little over 6 inches. Split that into that. Now I'm going to set in a number 10 screw in there. And now that the forward and center seats are in, I can now calculate out where the blocks need to go for the oarlocks. So that'll be the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Do consider becoming a subscriber as we continue on the Acorn build. See you next time.